If you always wanted to try out a keyboard and mouse on your Xbox, Nintendo Switch or PlayStation, you might run into the issue that not all games are supported. But the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2 might solve that problem for you. It's ROM B360. This is the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2, which is an adapter that lets you play any Xbox Series, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch and PlayStation game with a keyboard and mouse. In this video I will show you how it works and performs on the Xbox Series X, but I will make more in-depth videos per console later. So make sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on these videos. Also important to know is that I tested the Leadjoy VX2 before and after the Xbox November 12th update, which would eliminate third-party accessories, but I can confirm the Leadjoy VX2 is still working the same as before the update. That being said, inside the box you get the Leadjoy VX2, a manual and 2 USB cables, which you can use to connect your controller. In order to set up the Leadjoy VX2, you need to connect it to your console through the USB port and then connect your console's controller and a wired keyboard and mouse on one of the USB ports. Also, it doesn't matter if it's a very old one like this. Once you've done that, the Leadjoy VX2 will then flash green 3 times to confirm you are connected. If that goes wrong, you can always try again with the reset button. And if you want to, you can also connect your wired headphone through the 3.5mm jack port. Also a nice little touch are these rubbers on the bottom so it won't slide on your desk. And I love that you can connect your keyboard and mouse on the front of the console instead of having one connected on the back. Before you start using the Leadjoy VX2, it's important to know that only these keys will work on your keyboard. Just pause the video to check it out on your own pace. Also, I would recommend using it in single player mode, not multiplayer mode, just to keep the playing field fair, but also prevent you from being potentially banned, as it might be considered cheating. The first thing that I noticed is that the keyboard and mouse didn't work immediately in the main menu with the Leadjoy VX2. But the keyboard did work immediately in the main menu without the Leadjoy VX2. You need to customize the settings first through the Leadjoy app to make things work in the main menu, but we will get into that later. Once you're inside the game, the keyboard and mouse controls work, even on games that normally don't work with a keyboard and mouse. For example, like Cyberpunk 2077 and GTA 5. However, at first impression they work really sluggish, and it's not clear which keys are linked with the controller's buttons. But that is where the Leadjoy app comes in. Just download it in the Google Play Store or App Store, and in the app you can select your Leadjoy VX2 and customize it as you like, or test if your controller is functioning properly. By the way, you can still use your controller while connected with the Leadjoy VX2, but keep in mind it needs to stay on. As far as your keyboard and mouse settings go, you can select the console you want to use, and you can select fixed settings per game. Or you can add a game and configure it to your personal needs, because you can set up any button from your controller to your keyboard. Just keep in mind that you can only use certain keys, as I mentioned before. But as far as customization goes, it's pretty good. For the mouse configuration, you can choose your frame rate adaptation, sensitivity, mouse smoothness, curve, invert your Y-axis and curve effect. And you can even change your ADS, joystick and key settings. You can just save all these personal settings for later or make a backup and use it per game or game style. But if that's too much work for you, you can also use settings from other people or modify them as you like. And I noticed that when you change the settings through the app, it works almost instantly. And the configuration of the app works much better than changing the in-game settings, as those barely had any effect on the performance of the keyboard and mouse. So I would definitely recommend using the Leadjoy app. Just keep in mind it can take up some time if you want to configure every game individually, but that's not mandatory. I've tested the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2 on installed games, Xbox Series games, but also on Xbox One and Xbox 360 games, and it works great on all of them, even on cloud stream games which normally don't work without the adapter. Talking about the input lag, I have to say it seems minimal, so that's great. Just don't expect to play any competitive multiplayer games with it, but as mentioned, it's considered cheating and you could potentially get banned. I would stick to single player games, also to keep multiplayer a bit more fair for the controller users. But when playing single player games, it works more than fine. So if you're used to playing with a keyboard and mouse, you will probably love this accessory. And here is a small gameplay clip, just don't mind my lack of skills. Also good to know is that the normal functions like the Xbox menu and screenshot feature work. You can also use your keyboard on streaming apps like Netflix and so on, but not your mouse. Some things that don't work are redeeming keys or sending messages, at least the way you would expect, because you can't type normally as your keyboard will function as a controller, which is a bummer. Also, the internet browser doesn't work with the Leadjoy VX2 directly plugged in, but it does work without it, which is kind of strange. If you want to use a headphone, you can easily plug it in on the side of the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2, which will sound pretty similar to when you connect your headphone to your controller. Just keep in mind you can only connect a wired headphone to the Leadjoy VX2, so if you want to use a Bluetooth headphone, you need to connect it directly to your console. But for now, let's just summarize my personal pros and cons, starting with the pros. The first and obvious would be that you can play all your games with a keyboard and mouse. That means Xbox Series X, 360, One and even xCloud games. Another cool thing is that it's really easy to set up and it's multi-platform, but we will test that extensively in the next video. Also, the regular functions still work, like the home button, screenshot and more. Not to forget the Leadjoy app, which is highly customizable, as you can configure your keyboard and mouse to any setting that you like. And lastly, I absolutely like the form factor. But that doesn't mean the Leadjoy VX2 is perfect, because it doesn't always work properly without using the app. It also takes some time to configure all your games, but just to be clear, it's not mandatory. Furthermore, the internet browser doesn't work properly, but it does work pretty good without the Leadjoy VX2. You also can't type any messages or redeem codes as normal, because your keyboard will react as a controller. Then there's the cheating discussion. If you will use the Leadjoy VX2 online, you will always have a risk to get potentially banned online. And even though the Leadjoy VX2 works after the latest Xbox update, that won't assure that the Leadjoy VX2 will work forever. And furthermore, you will have a lot of cables on your desk, so take that into account. So should you buy the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2 Aimbox for your Xbox if you want to play any Xbox game with a keyboard and mouse, mainly offline games, and don't mind a bit of a software setup, then this might be something for you. But if you want a perfect experience to say it will also work on the internet browser, messaging, etc., that's not what you get with this adapter. Anyway, if you want to buy the Gamesir Leadjoy VX2, you can get it at Geekbuying for around $40 or euros, with the link in the description. But if you want to see how it works on the Nintendo Switch or PlayStation 4, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss these videos. Or in the meanwhile, check out these videos on which games are supported on a keyboard and mouse without an adapter. See you there!